The time has officially arrived. Stars Reach has released into early access. So how does it differ from the vast majority of traditional theme park MMOs we're used to? What makes this new Sandbox stand out? And is it even worth it? Today we're diving in and taking it apart piece by piece to find out. Let's tackle the hard part first, and be blunt about it. Stars Reach is not a finished game. The core mechanics have taken shape, the worlds and physics are pretty impressive, and there is fun to be had. But it's still rough around the edges, and it needs more content. That being said, the developers are not shy about the state of the game. The early access release is an alpha build. But that is something I actually respect. The developers are incredibly transparent and have been in regular communication with the community. Whether it's members of the dev team chatting directly with players in Discord, or the living roadmap that tracks development and changes on a daily basis. You don't see communication and transparency on this level often. I mean, there wasn't even an NDA on the pre-alpha testing that's been going on prior to early access. They want everyone to know exactly what's going on. So, if the whole alpha thing is a concern for you, that's understandable. But I do encourage everyone to visit the roadmap for themselves, and maybe refresh it a few different days to see how it changes. The link is in the description. Moving on to the fun stuff, the Stars Reach universe is a vast sandbox, with a wide variety of planets to explore, ravage for resources, or preserve and colonize. All connected via wormholes, linked up through a series of space sectors. How many planets exactly? That I can't say, because the game's servers are designed to respond to player demand. If the galaxy starts to get too crowded, it can just spin up new worlds and space zones. And similarly, if a planet gets used up and abandoned, it can be shut down and have access to its portal closed. It's all dynamic. These planets themselves are 1 square kilometer zones with barriers blocking us in for lore reasons that are too complicated to explain in a mostly gameplay-focused preview. Though we are expecting larger planets to appear further down the line, with the stated goal of being 4 kilometer by 4 kilometer worlds, or 16 times the size of what we're starting with. Each world in Stars Reach is procedurally generated and powered by a complex simulation. The materials that make them up have varying properties and behave differently. Loose soil, sand, and gravel will shift and slide down hills, while harder stone is much more stable. But even types of stone can vary. Something like granite can support massive stone archways, but weaker rock may collapse. But it isn't just solid materials being simulated. Liquids and gases are represented too. Water flows, filling spaces and potentially even eroding soft materials as it goes. It can also be heated up, transitioning into steam, which will eventually cool back down and condense into water. And heat can be applied to solid materials as well, melting them down into magma before cooling back down and solidifying once again. Though this process doesn't always revert back to where it started. If sand gets melted down, it will re-solidify into glass. Taking a look at your actual character, Stars Reach will feature 4 playable races at the release of Early Access, with 4 additional races coming in one at a time. The starters are Terran, Gurton, Squatchy, and Elioni. Then, in no particular order, the Hugon, Hansian, Fae, and Stokati will likely arrive in the beginning phases of early access. So if you see something you like, be sure to save a character slot. Your character is then built up upon 9 core stats, split into 3 main categories. At the basic top level, you have your health, stamina, and focus pools. Your health determines how much damage you can take. Stamina is used while sprinting and climbing, and focus is your mental capacity and a bit like a mana bar for abilities and other activities. New players can balance these pools how they like and leave it at that, but each pool also has 2 additional substats for more advanced builds. Constitution, Fitness, and Serenity are used to determine the regen rate of the health, stamina, and focus pools respectively, while Toughness affects how much health damage you take from attacks, and Strength and Concentration lowers the cost of actions that use stamina and focus. There is no locked-in class system in Star's Reach. Instead, the skill system is incredibly open-ended, spread out across multiple categories and trees. There is a limited number of skill points you can spend, but aside from that, you're free to mix and match whatever you're interested in. Assault rifles are one of the latest combat skills to have its tree expanded out, and a satisfying weapon for combat-oriented players. While cooking and tailoring have deep skill trees with intricate recipes for crafters. And for those who like to dig and gather resources, the mineralogy tree offers ways to optimize resource yields and fun tools for interacting with a complex world simulation. Not everything is fully implemented, though. There are many skill trees that are stubby or labeled as work in progress. This is part of what we'll see throughout early access. New professions and skill trees expanding with more ways to play, including skills for players focused on social aspects of the game, with skill trees for dance, music, and even journalism. So let's break it all down into core components. Combat in Star's Reach is high-speed, action arcade style. The creatures you fight will actually drop power-ups to aid you by healing, granting invulnerability, cranking up speed and jump height to its max, or exploding for mass AoE damage. And instead of having a massive grand piano's worth of hotkeys for all your abilities, you assign just a couple of abilities to each weapon or tool, firing them off with Q and E in the heat of battle. And each weapon type, be it pistols, assault rifles, snipers, grenade launchers, or the many others still in development, they all have their own unique playstyle. There's also a high degree of mobility in combat as well. Aside from just running, jumping, and climbing, you'll also need to be prepared to dodge around enemy fire, whether it's a scatter shot, arcing mortar fire, or dreaded homing missile. You can also use the grapple to get in and out of areas quickly, or a grav mesh for a quick ascent. Then, in the worst case scenario, if you just can't get out of the way, there are also deployable shields you can slot in as equipment. It's not all fighting though. There's a lot to go out and explore in Star's Reach, with wild wormholes appearing on a regular basis to open up the path to new worlds. The planet generation system here is designed to make sure you never discover a duplicate. And as early access goes on, we can expect to see it expanded even further, with a wide variety of biomes and unique alien topographies. Each planet can then be mapped out using tools like the Pathfinder, and scanning for nodes to reveal sections of the map, a feature that will be expanded on over the course of early access to allow explorers to trade and sell their maps, as well as granting players with the right ranger skills the ability to mark and name landmarks they discover. Rangers also have the skills to set up temporary camps out in the wilderness. These camps provide them with a respawn point and a selection of basic crafting stations. The respawn point, known as a relife station, is definitely the most critical, as it not only helps while out exploring, but also works for a whole group out on the hunt for any kind of creature that might be on the dangerous side. But so far, all of this takes place above ground. What's down below? Mining and resource gathering in Star's Reach is where the complex world physics simulation really becomes noticeable. Taking the terraformer and digging through hard rock and stone along the side of a cliff makes for a good, solid mining tunnel. But trying to dig straight down through loose soil is a losing fight. You'll end up standing in a shallow crater with dirt sliding back down into the center as fast as you can dig it up. There are tools, like the chronophaser, that can harden the dirt into stone, but that's not really a tool you'd expect a new player to have. The terraformer also has its own resource scanner. Any resource located on the planet can be tracked by hitting tab while the tool is equipped. Scanning pulses then lead the way towards the nearest deposit, though the type of world you're on may impact how plentiful or rare any specific resource is. And it's worth noting that resources on different worlds also have different stats. You can find high-quality iron on one planet, and then garbage quality on the next. The higher the stats, the better, because they'll end up factoring into the crafting process and be used for better items. Though if renewable resources are more your thing, there are a variety of plants in Star's Reach that can be harvested for resources via the Botany skill tree. The harvester works on small plants and some trees to gather resources like fiber, fruit, vegetables, and even some trace gases, while the Xylo Slicer can chop down trees for wood. These actions also provide a chance of getting a seedling of sorts that can then be planted in other locations using a trowel, which doesn't necessarily have to be about acquiring resources. It's also great for decorating if there's a specific place you want a plant to go, though the main purpose is to act as the start for the farming system. It's simple right now: acquire seedling, plant, wait for it to grow, then harvest what you need. And you get even more when you pick up the extra skills to improve yields with the harvester. Beyond that, though, we've seen plans for more in-depth farming with additional tools and fertilizer. But what do we do with all of these resources? Well, nearly everything in Star's Reach is crafted by players. The only exceptions are a small number of basic tools and weapons given to everyone at the start of the tutorial. So if you want something better, you're going to need to either be a crafter or find a crafter. It is the most recent of the core systems to be delivered during the previous playtest period, and it can be complex. Something like a weapon is crafted from various components, and those components were also crafted, likely from refined resources. And the refinement of those resources is also a form of crafting. All of these pieces, with their own recipes, stack up like a pyramid to form a completed product. And the game is designed around the idea of players working together and developing their own supply chains, because there is a limit to how many recipes your character can have active at one time. You're encouraged to specialize. And while each skill you unlock in your chosen craft will grant you some core critical recipes you need to progress, the game offers many more to be found through loot and other means. As a result of this approach to crafting, the economy in Star's Reach is entirely player-driven. If you find a shop selling weapons, or food, or building supplies, then it was put there by a player, with the small exception of low-quality basic tool vendors on the main space station. And to keep the economy flowing, your tools and equipment will lose durability when used. You can offset this initially by using repair kits, but each repair comes with the chance of lowering the maximum durability of your item. And if you wait too long to repair it, there's actually a chance of failure that will break the item entirely. So no matter what, you'll eventually need to replace your gear. The possibilities here for cooperative groups or trade-focused guilds is immense. You could build an entire in-game company based on these systems, with a resource division doing the mining or farming, and then production groups working to assemble various components or final products. Of course, there's still room for independent and solo players too. You just need to find a reliable source to buy the components you need or sell the ones you make. Regardless of how you choose to play, you'll probably need a base of operations. One of the most interesting aspects of Star's Reach as an MMO is the ability to own your own plot of land and build a homestead almost anywhere you want. It's not instanced, You live out in the open world with everyone else. Or not in the open, if you prefer to burrow underground and build a lair inside a cave. Or ditch the world part entirely and build out in space. This is done by purchasing the Homesteader item from a vendor on the main space station, then taking it out to claim a place you want to build. From there are a couple of main tools that are used for construction. The Instaformer builds cube-shaped blocks that interact directly with the terrain and the world simulation, while the Fabricator is used for placing props and furniture that don't really have any physics to them. It's worth noting, though, that during early access, the game costs money to buy and everyone can set up a homestead to claim land. However, the developers have made it clear that once the game reaches 1.0, it will become free to play, and owning a homestead will be tied to a property pass, which are purchased somewhat like a subscription, except they are also an item that can be traded, as well as acquired through some currently unannounced in-game methods. Of course, if you don't have a homestead of your own, you could still share one with a friend. In fact, Stars Reach has an entire planetary government system for cooperative groups of players to claim and manage their own planets. Through the use of a GovBot terminal, players can sign up to be a citizen of a planet and then contribute resources towards leveling up the terminal. Once the terminal levels up for the first time, the player who contributed the most resources to its advancement is declared the mayor. From there, each level unlocks the ability to set up more and more amenities for your world. Things like mission terminals, banks, marketplaces, skill terminals, and more. There are also sets of permissions that can be tweaked in order to prevent other players from destroying a claimed planet, to stop them from digging or burning, or even control who joins a planet as a citizen to begin with. We've already covered a lot, and there's plenty more coming. Early access is just the beginning for Stars Reach. And taking a look at the living development roadmap, we can see what the upcoming priorities are. Of course, the first priority is sure to be any immediate bug fixes or improvements that stem from the initial launch. But after that, the next priorities list shows that we can expect an enhanced new building system for homesteads, single pilot spaceships, and a new points of interest system that ties into world generation to create things like abandoned alien labs, strange temples with radioactive fields, crashed pirate vessels, and much more. Beyond that, there's systems for social professions, with skill trees including dance, music, acting, and journalism, an in-game newsnet tying back to the journalism skills for players to write in-game articles, additional xenobiology skills for taming and training creatures, more types of weapons including melee, and a complete stealth system. I could do a whole video on the development roadmap and the most interesting things that are on the way, but even with some of my more recent videos, references I've made to it are already out of date. Things on there really do move around quite quickly. So now, it's verdict time. Is Stars Reach Early Access worth it? Do I recommend it? Well, I have 3 answers for this, and it all depends on what kind of person you are. Verdict number 1. If you're the kind of person that wants to play a game that's closer to completion, and the idea of early access in an alpha test state bothers you, then no. I recommend waiting, then checking again in a few months from now. Unless you also happen to be an old-school Star Wars Galaxies fan. Verdict number 2. If you are an old-school Star Wars Galaxies fan, then I'm absolutely going to recommend it, even if you don't normally do early access games. Because this really feels like a spiritual successor, even if it is still a work in progress. Just think back to the release of Star Wars Galaxies, pre-Jump to Lightspeed expansion. There was a time when we didn't have ships or vehicles, things that arguably the game definitely needed, but we still had fun even as we waited for new features. So I say, give it a shot. Verdict number 3. If you're bored of traditional theme park MMOs, if you think a game with more sandbox freedom would be refreshing, and you don't have an issue with playing an early access that starts out as an alpha, then honestly, yes, I recommend it. I played the previous playtest for the past year and a half already, and I'm still having a blast with the existing community, even if the game does still have some rough edges. So what do you think? Will you be playing the early access? Or are you going to wait a bit to see how things unfold? Let me know down in the comments, and be sure to subscribe right here for all the latest news, guides, and tips. Till next time.